Hey guys, welcome to the 7th episode of Metal Mixing 101. Today we're going to be going over vocals and how I mix them, how I go about getting them to sit in the mix a little bit better. This is by popular request across my videos, so I hope this helps. By the way, there is now Death Tour merch available. You can find all the cards down beneath the description if you're interested. But anyway, without wasting any more time, let's just get right into it. So we're just going to go ahead and listen to the raw vocals and just kind of see how those sound, just so you can kind of hear a better idea of what we go for when we're actually tracking vocals.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony!
Lucky is a killer vocalist. He would be obviously in my band Pale Void. So what I'm about to show is dynamic EQ. Not all EQs have dynamic EQ, but you can also get a very similar effect with multiband compression, so just keep that in mind moving forward. So the reason I want dynamic EQ or multiband compression is mostly just because if I'm cutting something, I don't want it to always be cut. Vocals are extremely dynamic. That's why you see everyone just compress the living hell out of them. Being able to have more control over how much of the frequency you will let through before it starts to cut rather than just straight cutting, it makes a world of a difference. So I'll go ahead and play it through again and just see what I feel like it could use.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony! Where the human story ends!
There's like a really throaty sound that's kind of coming through from the distortion, and I kind of want to get that pinned out.
Funny! Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony!
Around there maybe.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind!
That did help quite a bit. What these moves are, aside from that cut that I just explained, is this is around where I feel like a lot of the presence was coming through. So I just gave it a slight boost, and we can always come back and adjust that later. I will go ahead and throw on some compression. I've been kind of liking this plugin a little bit more lately, just to get a solid foundation of the compression just right out the box. So I know for a fact I'm going to have to just turn down the gain a bit. So I'll go ahead and play it and just see how it sounds default.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony!
So yeah, it was slamming. So I turned down the slay, which is basically going to be the threshold.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony!
That sounds fine, but I'll turn it down a little bit more.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony!
And the reason I turned it down so much when I said it sounds almost fine is because I am going to add extra compression later in the chain, so keep that in mind. If you're not going to do 2 instances of compression on your vocals, at least with my processing, you're going to want to squash them. You're going to make it as extreme as you can without making it sound like it's being pushed and pulled, because you want it to still be pretty much in the center. All right, and so I've been also using this Howard Benson vocals from JST. I've been really liking it just because it's extremely easy to dial in any effects that you want. I'm going to be a bit lazy. I'm going to shift double click and let the vocals play on their own and let the plugin determine what the best input is. Volume warning, it's going to make it very loud pretty much instantly as soon as it finishes. So you might want to turn this down a little bit.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony!
All right, we're good. I'll turn it down now. From here, what I like to do is I'll use the gain reduction. So it's basically this plugin, but times 2. And I'll kind of explain what I'm looking for as I'm going. So
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony! Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony!
Around 51%, I really liked how it sounded just because it brought the vocals right in front. And on top of that, around any more than this, it was getting a little distorted with when there was two vocal tracks at the same time. Here, it is still distorted, but it's a lot more manageable and it's a lot more intentional, I guess is the best way to put it. And de-esser, it's always good to have. So basically getting rid of all of like the really harsh S sounds. So like you probably didn't even pick up on my microphone. Be careful not to go too overboard with this because if you do too much, then it sounds like they're all lisping. And grit, I'll go ahead and play and apply that to taste.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony. Ghost in the machine.
Just like that. And I raised the de-esser a little bit. I'll play it without it and then I'll start adding it in. And you'll hear that when there's a lot of those sounds, again, I'm sure it didn't pick up. You'll hear that they're a lot more easy on the ear.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony.
Perfect. This next part is going to basically be very subjective. I myself personally really like the sound of really spacey vocals where there's just a lot of reverb, a lot of delay. I really like that sound and I think it really helps fill out the mix where it needs it. So these effect settings, you don't need to copy them, it's just my preference. So one reason I really like this plugin as well is the echo. You can literally turn it less than 20 and it'll sound perfectly fine.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony.
So you can hear it automatically added the ping pong effect, it automatically added the delay, and we can also experiment with the lo-fi.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony.
I do like the lo-fi, but I don't think it would fit this song personally. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it. So I'll go ahead and unsolo the vocals and see where we're sitting so far. It is a little quiet, so I'll turn it up.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony. Where the human story ends, we build their wings, and then we fall.
So there is a little too much grit in it, in my opinion, at least in the full mix. So just wanted to pause it there and let that be known.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony. Where the human story ends.
All right, perfect. And now that we have the volume that we want and how it's just straight in the mix, now I'm going to go back over to the EQ and see what we can do there, just because it's a lot easier to EQ them in with the song rather than just solo and then making everything work around it. Let's get started. I'll play the song and just start messing around and see what happens.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony. Where the human story ends, we build their wings, and then we fall. Teardrops on a string, where the melodies been. We are the end, we are
So I kind of did a lot there. I was mostly just trying to focus, but I'll go ahead and just explain everything now. So with the solo vocals again, as you noticed, I did add the dynamic bands. And the reason I didn't just straight up boost this spot is because I was noticing when I pulled up this section here, the de-esser it was still working, but it was getting a lot more harsh, and I didn't want that. And so I just kind of wanted it to be boosted, but only when I kind of feel like it, I guess. So I'll go ahead and turn off that band and I'll add it in.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony.
So it's mostly just adding a little bit more presence when there is those two vocal tracks playing at the same time. This section here, it was just feeling a little muffled, so I can go ahead and solo that out for you.
A fading symphony.
And without it.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony.
So you can hear it really like immediately cleared up the vocals, and I really liked that as soon as I did it. I didn't want to get rid of it entirely because those frequencies around this range is where the vocals typically sit, at least for me, and getting rid of those, it'll just be buried no matter what. So making it dynamic is a perfect way to get rid of that issue and just make it super straightforward. And then the low end dynamic band I'll go ahead and solo. Sounds really awful. Turning it off.
Ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind, a fading symphony.
Not really doing too much there, but if we go over to where he does the lows.
And now we fall.
Coming up.
Teardrops on a string.
Honestly, not doing too much. It's helping it not clash too much in the mix here and there. So now that we have a decent-ish vocal mix, how do we get that to sit on top of the instrumental without getting buried or being too loud? Unfortunately, my way of doing this is using Soothe, and so I wouldn't really have a very clear way to do it otherwise. However, I will show you what I used to do and what kind of worked for me up until I got Soothe. And so with Soothe, I like to turn it on to the preset flat start, and I'll get the vocal routing and just drop it directly in to the plugin itself and turn on sidechain. And I'll just turn this up to a random amount, and our ears are very sensitive to vocals around 2K, 1.5 to 2K. And so I'll put the band directly there, and I'll make it more sensitive as boosting does in Soothe, and see how that sits. But just taking off Soothe and on. They're kind of sitting in the instrumental a little bit better, and that's what I really like about this plugin. But if I didn't have Soothe, how would I do that? I would get another instance of an EQ on my mix bus, and again, the vocals tend to sit around 1.5 to 2K. Well, that's where they're most present at least. And so I'll just do a dip. Just like that. However, some vocalists are different, and so what you can do is you can make a big boost and you can sweep around, and you'll hear exactly where the vocals get drowned out, and you'll hear exactly where they kind of fit by doing that. So I'll show you that now. So you can kind of hear what I mean by they just get drowned out, like you can barely hear them. It was around 2K, so in this instance it was correct. That would be my approach to figuring that out. It was another quick one today, but I hope it was at least somewhat useful. If you would like, I do have a Discord server. The link is in the description, along with all of my other socials if you want to go and follow me there for some reason. But anyway, that will be it for me today, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.